Merkel Media.
What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Look, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tack-Theratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him.
Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Muammar Gaddafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles and Fort Lauderdale?
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you're watching us on Rockfin or Rumble or listening wherever podcasts are served, thanks a million. We appreciate the support. You can connect with me through the website, theoctopusofglobalcontrol.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Macroaggressions. Big thanks to our sponsors. They make this program actually happen. The folks over at Legal Shield have been doing this for half a century in the United States and Canada. They get you access to an attorney in your area for a very reasonable price. How reasonable? How about $1 a day? I mean, that's about as good as you're going to get. You'll have access to an attorney that could draft documents for you. They can review legal your contracts, legal contracts. They can help you out if you need a power of attorney, a financial, last will and testament, whatever sort of documents that you need, and you need them. You've got to have them. You don't want to go to an attorney and spend a couple grand for you and your spouse, but you need to have these documents. So look, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You go to the website and you just read about it. And if you see something that you like, I promise you that you will be happy with the service that you get because they've been doing this for so long. They know what you need. You can go to www.don'tgetpushedaround.com and read up about it and figure out what your plan is going to be when they unleash those 87,000 IRS agents that most definitely aren't going after Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. They're coming for you. They're coming for your Venmo transactions. They're looking for things to do. They want to harass you. If you have access to an attorney, I'll tell you what, things go a little bit differently. So go over to the website, don'tgetpushedaround.com, and see for yourself. And since we've got the Wise Wolf here himself, this episode is also brought to you by Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. Tony Arterburn, the owner of the company, has physical locations if you are interested in going that direction. Or you can go through the Wise Wolf, the Wolf Pack automated buying program, which I am doing myself. In fact, I am expecting a box from you any day now, probably even today. So I'll tell you what, macroaggressions.gold is a website that you can go to and take a look and find information about Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. I think that if you're listening to shows like this, you probably don't have a ton of confidence in the US dollar. Why would you? So take a look over there. Go to www.macroaggressions.gold and find out. Also, listen, we're going to be in Mexico, in Acapulco. Tony's going to be there too. So we'll see you in Acapulco, Mexico, February 11th through the 16th. You can use the promo code MACRO over at anarchapulco.com to save yourself some money. Come hang out with us. I'm going to be hosting the event this year. It ought to be a lot of fun. We got VIP parties at night. We've got, I think they've got comedy shows. I haven't seen the full list of everything. There's auctions happening. There's a lot going on. I would encourage you to at least get over there and check it out. And if you can't make it in person, there's a live stream option. You can do that. Anarchapulco.com. The link is in the description. So, well, one of my favorite people in the world is here with us to break down the ins and outs of what we're experiencing. He is the host of the Paratruther podcast. He is the host of the Arterburn radio transmission show that's been going on for a long, long time. He's 1/3 of America Unplugged, the good third, I hear. And he is my friend, Tony Arterburn. Ladies and gentlemen, hello, Tony. Good to see you again. How are you?
It's good to see you, Charlie. I was thinking, I would like Armageddon to just be a little farther out than Anarchapulco, because I still want to make Anarchapulco. And the headlines are not boding well for us to be free and traveling the earth, as it seems, my friend.
No, they're not, unfortunately. And it seems like this has been, I was there in 2020, right before things really got crazy with COVID. And that, looking back on that, it felt like, sanity, bye-bye, like waving goodbye to sanity in retrospect. And now after going last year, I realized, hey, listen, they didn't shut down the world forever. We are resilient. We're going to find a way to get together and have a good time and talk about how diabolical the state is. We'll always make time for that. And hopefully everyone can join us in Mexico, because I'll tell you, every time I come back from there, I feel I have like mixed emotions. I'm really glad I went. And I meet a lot of people, and it's a fun time, and it's great stories. And I take a lot of notes of all the speakers that are there. But I feel kind of sad. I feel like I'm going back to the real world, and I feel like, if only like we could get these lunatics to come down to Mexico for a couple days and listen to this and understand that there's a whole different world out there. There's a whole different group of people that see the world differently, and they want to make things better. They're not actively trying to make things worse. And as long as these people don't shut down the airports, we're going, man. We're going to be there. We're going to have a good time. So we'll see everybody there. Tony, you and I we were in New York City a couple weeks ago. We did what I think they probably don't want you to do, but we did it anyway, which is walk around Ground Zero Friday night at like midnight. There's nobody down there. You can do whatever you want down there, apparently. And we got ourselves. It was really powerful, and have Billy Ray there to give us sort of a guided tour about, this is where I was, and this is where the smoke was coming from, and to see all of that. What were your thoughts after that New York trip?
Well, I tell you, one of my most prized possessions now is a picture of you and I on Wall Street on that night we walked down to Ground Zero, and I look at it, and at the time, it was an adventure and it felt fun. And I look back on it now, it kind of gives me goosebumps, and I think, here we are, and really the tip of the spear. What's going on historically, Charlie? Alternative media. Our job as researchers, doing our best to find the truth, but also just being on the corner of Wall Street with you. And I think, we talked about the coming financial collapse, the reset, whatever you want to call it, the revaluation of all currencies. It really just, and I play a small part in it, but it's interesting, and I'm engaged. I feel like I'm part of history in this moment where we're watching the world change, and not everybody's aware of it. I think, and I don't know that we're fully aware of the implications, but it's massive. And, you start throwing around stats and figures. I was listening to your show a couple of days ago, and you were talking about the debt that was just hit 33 trillion. How convenient, that's 30, these numbers. 33, they hit 33 trillion. And this is a 100-year plan. It's a centuries-long plan, but you talk about modern with central banking and the Federal Reserve. Has this been the plan all along? Is this how the elites decided they were going to do the controlled demolition of the American empire? Has it been this slow kill? Where we're watching everything about the United States, our power, our influence, our manufacturing base, everything, it's dwindling and it's being thrown away. in this futility where we're just engaged in every war stupidly. We've thrown away the petrodollar stupidly. I mean, and you wonder, is it's like James Forrestal told McCarthy, he said, actually, he's like, if all the people were just stupid, then every once in a while they'd err in our favor. If all the politicians and leaders were just stupid. So it's not just stupidity. No. There's something else here. And I think there's a plan and action. I mean, you called it when you wrote the Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. And the charges have been set, and are you watching it implode? And no political movement out there right now on the horizon for 2024 is really talking about the true challenges we face. They're all surface level. It's all, wrestling, WWE. It's all fake. And we in the middle, we're just going, hey, wait, you should talk about the death of the dollar. You should talk about the American empire crumbling. You should talk about how we don't have a border, and we're having a complete demographic shift in the United States like we've never seen before. I mean, all of these things are happening at once, and it's accelerating. So on one hand, I'm somewhat exhilarated that there's so much change and we get to be a part of it and talk about it. On the other hand, it is absolutely terrifying. So that's the two feelings I have.
I feel the same way. I just checked our debt's 33.522 trillion, global debt 305 trillion. Okay. But we owe it to ourselves, Tony. We owe the debt to ourselves. Yeah. No, we don't. We owe it to a private central bank that wants it. And frankly, the money is almost irrelevant at this point. They want control. Yeah, the control is there that to make you do what you want, make you get up in the morning and go to work for them, and keep you busy on the plantation, like toiling away and not noticing what they're doing behind the scenes. This has been this. I feel the same way that you feel about this, which is I think a lot of people are going to get hurt, and I don't like that. And I wish more people were paying attention and they had their heads up, and they were looking around, and I wish they were aware, because we wrapped up that book. Berwick and I wrapped up that book talking about, and you and I've talked about this before too, the Banda Aceh earthquake. Happy birthday to Tony, right? And on December 26, 2004, and it just wiped people out, because they didn't understand what they were seeing when they saw it. They didn't know what it meant when the water was gone, when they went to the beach and there was no water. But the people that had experience knew, and the animals instinctively knew. How funny that the animals were like, something's wrong here. I'm getting out of here. And yet here we are. We're so smart. We know all this. We have cell phones in our pockets, and we have Wikipedia. So we know everything, right? Except that there are some things that we just miss. Common sense. Everyone's got their head down. Everyone's taking selfies, and because there's no water here, or let's fast forward 20 years and say that we're in a situation where there's no. You go out there to the ocean, and there's no. Where did the dollar go? The dollar's gone, Tony. But is it not coming back in a gigantic tsunami of something that is going to wipe out a bunch of people that don't know any better than to get to high ground? They don't know what they're seeing. They don't recognize the signs of this, but you do. You see this. You know that this infinite money printing can't go on forever. There is an end to it. And when it ends, then what do we do? It's too late at that point for, the music stopped. The chairs have been removed. Where are you going to sit? If you don't have gold, if you don't have silver, if you haven't made plans in advance of this, you're in a real difficult spot. So I want to talk to you about everything, of course, but in particular, gold and silver. And I don't want to turn this necessarily into an infomercial for Wise Wolf, but I believe in it so much, and I believe in gold and silver in general, and you and what you're doing with it in particular, that I think I want the audience to really I want them to at least leave this episode knowing more about gold and silver than when they started, and understanding, okay, I need to make some decisions. And if you're waiting for the nightly news to come on and tell you, it's time to get into gold and silver, you're going to be too late, because you've always got to be the last person to know this. But if you're paying attention, you're listening to shows like this or Tony shows, then you're already paranoid. And that you shouldn't be trusting these people, and you see something, and that there's something you may not be a financial analyst, and neither am I, but you recognize you recognize a bad system, a broken system, when you see one. And this is where we are. If we get to a point where the dollar loses its world's reserve currency status, that is going to have cascading effects on not just us in America. I mean, I know America likes to think they're the center of the universe, but because of what we've done with the dollar, we've made it everybody's business. Everybody is involved in this now. So if the dollar loses its reserve currency status, Tony, what do we think that looks like here in America?
Well, we've all got normalcy bias to some degree. Every one of us. It's deeply programmed into us. And if you look at history, currency and gold and silver. The story of currency really is the story of gold and silver. They go hand in hand. They're not always connected necessarily. They're not. How currency is always backed by gold. They always end up in zero. But the big picture: who controls the money supply? Mayor Amschel Rothschild said in the 19th century, he said, I care not who sits on the British throne. The person who controls the British Empire is the person who controls the money supply, and I control the British money supply. So if you're looking at that and what happened in 1913 when the United States got the Federal Reserve, a group of banksters basically created a fake federal organization. It's as federal as Federal Express. It's a private corporation that controls the money supply. And after that, right after that, it was the Christmas Eve, 1913, Charlie, that we got the Federal Reserve. And most of the Congress and Senate had gone home. Wilson signs it into law. And then 7 months later, we get World War I. Oh, it's just a coincidence, Charlie. That was the crown jewel. That's what they needed, the American empire. They needed really what was going to become the manufacturing marvel of mankind, and was already on the way to become the leader of the free world. It was already set to become that. The British Empire was already pretty much in its sunset at that time. And you have a control of the money supply that leads to these wars. We become the world's reserve currency in 1944 officially at Bretton Woods at the end of World War II. So this goes on for a while, but you're seeing what the end game is really coming to fruition now, where all of the fraud that's built into fake money. We talk about conspiracy, we talk about the deep state, we talk about all these things that would not be possible really and truly on a scale that it is today without fake money. So you have the origin story of everything we see wrong in our world. And I know this is a very simplistic view, but I would bet everything on this. It all stems from fake money. See, it's fiat is fake. It's the head of the snake. I've said that on my show for years and years. If you go back and look at that, it creates buildings, it creates wars, it creates politicians, celebrities that should not be. Entire fake world. Because look at our stock market now, and people are still tied into this. They watch the financial shows, but really, what it boils down to: does that corporation have a relationship with the Federal Reserve? Does that corporation or BlackRock, which they kind of, after Trump, they really blend together. So that's ESG, environmental social governance. So it really has nothing to do with value anymore, because in the fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto is a central bank. I'll tell you a story real quick, but then I want to keep going. I hired a young lady that's I have a mother and a daughter that run my shop in Branson. And they're wonderful people. I couldn't do what I do and get on the road and have a second location without them. They're just wonderful Christian, wonderful people. I trust them because I have to deal with my cash and all the other stuff. And I hired the youngest daughter, she's 19, to do my social media. The other day, she put out a quote. You guys told her, just find quotes about gold and silver and do a post. And she sent me one, and she already posted it. And it was a quote by Karl Marx. Now the quote was, off the top of my head, but money is not by nature gold and silver, but gold and silver is by nature money, or something like that. And he was basically saying that there is no money outside of gold and silver. That is money. Right. But if you didn't understand the context of what he was saying, you think I'm supporting Karl Marx or his wisdom. But what he was saying is gold and silver are money. So in order for us really to control things, we need to have a central bank. That was the fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto, was to take over the money supply. It's something that Lenin also talked about. If you want to destroy a country, you first debauch its currency, right? So this is all about control. And the reason I got into the business that I'm in, and we'll talk about this more, but I love history. I love coinage. And I've always, always wanted to know what the origin was. Like when I would read history, I was like, what's the cause here? And it really always came back to follow the money to me. Everything, follow the money, follow the money. And so when I finally got there, I go, well, wait a minute, we have fake money. So what's real? So it really, when I started looking at what gold and silver mean in the modern era, which is really a way to protect yourself in this game. Like George Carlin called it, it's a big club and you ain't in it. They've got control of the money supply. They got control of the markets. How can you protect yourself? Because we need to represent our work, whether that's real estate or whether that's storable food or whatever, land, all of that. Our own business, we need to have value for every day we get up and work. We want to support our family. We want to make sure the lights stay on. We want to have a representation of our energy. And that's what gold and silver in its basic form are. But we live in an age of fake. Everything about our currencies all around the world are fake. And we'll talk about the central bank digital currencies too. I think that's part of this controlled demolition that we're witnessing. But I'll ask the audience a question. Can you imagine being in 1985 in the Soviet Union, just the year that Rocky IV came out? He fights Ivan Drago, or LinkedIn, we're having this death struggle with the evil empire. What if you went up to a Soviet citizen in 1985 and said, hey, that all those Soviet rubles you got in your pocket, they'll be worth zero in 5 years. Zero. What if that would seem far-fetched. That would seem like you really jumped the shark, Tony. That's crazy. And it's not going to be worth zero. But it was. I mean, Gorbachev gave up the ghost on Christmas Day in 1991. It's gone. You're done. You're no longer a country. They started revaluing having a new currency. I got to witness this as a young man in Iraq. I was that was my third foreign war, and I went into the tail end of the invasion of Iraq. And when the Saddam's Republican Guard fell in Mosul, we rolled in, took over their barracks, and the first thing they did was said, "Hey, go to the banks." They wouldn't even know what to do. I mean, it's such an arrogant. The Defense Department, they just, Rumsfeld thought we could control the country with 50,000 troops. I mean, I don't know if this was, I tend to think now they were just trying to see how many of us they could sacrifice in the Luciferian ritual, in my own personal opinion, because it was there was no plans. We had no maps, Charlie. We had nothing. Like, it's just roll in and see what's out there. And then we go to these banks and there were people running out with boxes of Iraqi dinar. And I just turned 23. And I'm looking around and I go, what the hell is happening? And nobody's stopping them. And the reason nobody, but there was still chaos. So we had to control, to put security in the building. And I would ask, so would they just leave with all the cash? And we finally figured out the reason they could, and nobody's stopping them. It's worth zero now. It went to zero over the invasion. I mean, it had Saddam's face on it. By the way, Saddam didn't keep his own money. Much like these central banks don't. I mean, we'll get into what's happening later with gold and why central banks, but they don't believe in their own system. So it's not like he had pallets of his own cash, right? He had pallets of $100 bills, and he had massive amounts of gold. So I got to see a currency die in real time.
Wow.
And you can't look. I mean, when you look at the dollar, we just grew up with it. There was I think, and we get used to it. I read a study the other day that millennials are outpacing boomers and Gen X. I'm Gen X, so are you. Mm-hmm. They're outpacing our generation. They're outpacing boomers on buying gold, except for one problem. They're buying ETFs. They're not buying physical. They almost got it. But Gen Z is they're even more skeptical. So it's this generational thing. Boomers got the world's reserve currency, Bretton Woods, 1944. We had a gold standard until Richard Nixon took us off of it in 1971. And gold was $35 an ounce. That was just the system that was set. So boomers got used to it. Gen X didn't have so much of the gold standard years. We got the 70s inflation, but it was still the dollar. They had Paul Volcker, the head of the Fed, came out, raised interest rates to the teens. In 1980, it was like 13, 14% on a mortgage. That's how they stopped the bleeding. And so anyway, we have this massive currency reset going on right now, Charlie. I'm not telling everybody that the dollar is going to zero tomorrow or anything like that. I'm not an alarmist, but you're talking about historical shifts at a speed that I don't think we've ever seen before. And I would also add, we've never actually seen. Now, history is always our guide. Churchill said something about the further you look into the past, the further you'll see into the future. That's usually the case because I'm a history guy. I'm a paratrooper who likes books, and that's as smart as I'm going to get. But I look at the past, but I don't see any example of what we are now, because the amount of the reason that we don't have hyperinflation is because of money velocity. I don't understand it. I'm just telling you why it is. It's the amount of people using a currency that keep the demand high. It's kind of like Tinkerbell, right? If you don't clap for Tinkerbell, she dies. And that's what happens to fiat currency. If you don't use it, if it's not being traded, and that's why when I opened up the show, I was talking about Joe Biden and the globalist leadership, the deep state, whoever Luciferian, eyes wide shut weirdos run this country now. They decided we're going green, Charlie.
Yeah,
we're going green, and we're getting away from the only thing that's propped up our currency is the petrodollar, and we turned our back on it. That's how you know it's an inside job.
Yes,
and you have even people inside the Biden administration that have written op-eds for the New York Times saying that we should lose the world's reserve currency status. It'd be better for us. Let me tell you something, folks. When we officially lose the world's reserve currency status, 1929 is going to look like a picnic. That is the end of American hegemony. It's the end of any prosperity. You can't fake your way out of that. The reason that we can print, or not, we don't print, there isn't enough paper, but the reason that we can create trillions is because we've got people all around the world still using the dollar. But that is dwindling. And I don't know how much of our geopolitical reshuffling going on now has to do with that, but I would assume about 90%. Who controls the money supply, right? That's all this is baked into, whether you're talking about Israel, Hamas, whether you're talking about Russia and Ukraine, or China and Taiwan. It's all tied back to who controls the money supply, who's the world's reserve currency, who has the big stick. And right now, we've still got it, but I would say barely, and we've done nothing to keep it. So when we're talking about the future, why I'm so pessimistic on the dollar is, one, all paper currency goes to zero. That's Voltaire. I mean, that's, back to the 18th century. He nailed it. I mean, it returns to its natural state, which is zero. So we know that. All fiat currencies throughout history have failed. Nobody dives to the bottom of the ocean to get a bag of cash. Okay? Nobody. Right? It's all gold survives, silver survives, period. But I think the normalcy bias has made us all really comfortable. I got to shake myself out of it. Like every day I wake up, I'm like, how can I prepare my companies for what's on the horizon? Like just chaos, bank failures, central bank digital currency, upheaval, shortages, all this stuff. Because it is if you time this right, I think you can really come out ahead in the future when it comes to, your wealth and being able to represent that. But if you're still holding on to the dollar, it's going to be a bad day for you. And it's going to be a bad day for all of us on some level. It's everything. It's baked into everything that we are now. The dollar it's so ubiquitous.
Yeah.
But it's going to fail. And the reason it's failing is because of arrogance. In a plan. You look at 40 different sanctions in 36 different countries. The dollar's been weaponized. And what did I talk about the other day on my show? Is 75% of all global financial transactions went on in dollars in 2001. So in 2001, 75% around the world right around the time of 9/11, 75%. It's now, after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, it's now 45%.
Wow.
And it's just, yes, because of this. When we put the sanctions on and removed them from the SWIFT system, Russia said, fine, we don't want dollars. Their finance minister called them candy wrappers. We don't want, in Russia, that's like toilet paper to them. Like, we don't even want it. So we don't trade in it. And they started doing deals with India, started doing deals with China direct. They have the first natural gas on the Shanghai exchange going on in yuan. So, I mean, all these countries around the world dumping the dollar. So it's happening. And those of us that are paying attention to it, we see it and we're alarmed. But the mainstream is never going to tell you what we're talking about now until it's too late.
Right. Well, even if you don't know the extent of what this means, 75% down to 45%, countries starting to trade outside of the US dollar, the BRICS gold backed currency. All you have to do is remember what you just earlier said, just a couple minutes ago, about money velocity. If you slow down the velocity of the dollar, eventually you'll kill it. And as they slow down the velocity and give countries brand new reasons to not want the dollar, I mean, then you are slitting your own throat, right? So if you're trying to keep the dollar relevant, you wouldn't be doing the things that you're doing right now, right? You wouldn't be stealing Russia's I forget what bank account it was in, the slush fund that they use when they're clearing international transactions, and essentially the United States just said, well, we're just going to keep all that. We're just going to steal all your stuff. And so how many times do you have to be a country that gets your things stolen by the United States before you go, I don't want to be on the SWIFT system? Who's got a way around it? And China goes, we built something. And they go, great, can we use it? And they go, of course. And they say, well, we have sanctions put on us by these lunatics over in America. Anyone else know how to get around them? And Iran raises their hand. And they go, we've been doing it for 40 years. We could maybe give you some tips. And you go, fantastic. In fact, you know what? Why don't we all just, I don't like them, you don't like them, why don't we all just stop doing business with them to the extent that we can? Why don't we come up with our own currency? Why don't we come up with a gold-backed BRICS currency? Now, I know that this isn't an actual currency that is going to be printed up into bills and you're going to have it in your wallet if you live in one of these BRICS countries, but it's a currency that's going to be used by these countries themselves to settle transactions. But it's one less reason to use the dollar, and for what it's worth, pretty large geographical group here, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then adding in Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. What do they have in common, Tony? Something about oil, maybe? So we've pissed off oil producers. We've pissed off the countries with the largest populations. We've weaponized the dollar. We've shown the world what we will do next time around. Look at what we've done to Russia. This is what's in store for you if you get on the wrong side of us. I mean, if you're the rest of the world, are you not plotting and planning right now to get yourself off of the dollar to the extent that you can?
I mean, you would be smart to. America's psychotic. We're schizophrenic. I mean, our leadership is. American people are still doing pretty good. Those of us who are showing up and going to work and keeping the lights on, we're still Americans. We're occupied territory at this point by lunatics. One of the things that, in the modern era that I always talk about, but, Hillary Clinton ran in 2016 as the presidential candidate saying she was going to put down Russian aircraft who were trying to bomb Al-Qaeda in Syria and was willing to risk nuclear war for that. I mean, it's pretty the peak insanity. And mainstream didn't catch that. But that's what our foreign policy was. And so if you're the rest of the world, we just look insane. And of course, we're just arrogant with it. The Greeks had that sequence of events in the writings when they would say, if you have hubris, which is arrogance. If you have hubris, that always summons nemesis, which is a destroyer, kind of like Ghostbusters or something. But it summons it, and that's what BRICS is. BRICS alone, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, that's 40% of the world's population. You start adding in those periphery countries, you're at 70% of the world's population. We're 5%. Now think of how much we blew it. After the end of World War II, we had 50% of the world's wealth, and we were 5% of the world's population. 50% of the world. We stood in like a colossus on the earth, and we could have built an entire civilization on free markets and the rule of law, but we didn't. We had to do the Cold War. We did the Cold War, and then we had another chance when I was about 10 years old. The fall of the Soviet Union broke into 16 pieces, like I talked about with Gorbachev on Christmas Day. What did we do again? Well, we went on the Crusades. We had to reach hegemonic dominance. The Wolfowitz Memorandum, 1992. Then we went to all these countries, Somalia, both, of course, Panama. Before that, Bosnia, Kosovo, which I was part of. It's all around the world, and of course, Afghanistan, Iraq, and was it supposed to be 7 countries in 5 years? We never got to that, but pretty much. I mean, we got really close. We've been in the periphery of those countries, so it's been I have to say it's been on purpose. The dismantling of our country and the ideas and everything it stood for, and the sovereignty of our country has been completely thrown away. So, as we're watching this unfold, the business that I'm in and what I do, not only just being in alternative media, but I offer being able to trade in your Luciferian bankster notes, also known as the dollar or fiat currency, for real money. And that's an honor. That's why I opened up a second location in Denison, Texas, right here on the border of Oklahoma. It's about an hour or so from the trading floor in Dallas. And I did this as a supply hub. It's a cool little location. I'm actually broadcasting from my house today. It's built in the 1940s. We're right here on the strip going into downtown. And I got it inside an antique mall that my mom owns. It's a nice satellite location though, because I've got the ability to, I got bank up the street. I can get cash. I can go to the trading floor. So it's a nice little periphery to what we do in Branson, which is my main hub. And that's where I got the nice office and, all the stuff. I mean, all the bells and whistles are not so much here. But we did that to open up a supply chain because I saw that as being the most important thing in the future that's going to define those in precious metals business is, can you get supply? Because, Charlie, if billionaires started placing orders, and by the way, they have, but if, let's say, some whales started to place orders tomorrow for precious metals, they can't get it. It's the markets don't reflect the actual supply. I'm finding this out. Whenever you have a hiccup at all, like at the beginning of COVID 1984, I couldn't get product. I could lock in a trade for you. You could call me. We could lock in the price. It's going to be 6 weeks before you get your silver or get your gold, especially if you have a specific item. If you're not to say, hey, fill it, Tony. I can usually do that, but that's happened. And there's been 3 or 4 times since then where I've had longer delays. We're kind of in this weird place right now where I can still, not everything's available all the time, but it still doesn't look like 2019. I've never had, those days are gone, where I could just open up the back office, see the items available, lock it in and get you that. It's not that easy anymore. And it's becoming harder and harder and harder. Luckily, there's been a break in the action. And yes, gold's risen $100 an ounce in the last 10 days. So there's been a lot of change. There's some volatility. I still get product, but I don't think people truly understand that when it's like a game of musical chairs, right? You're going to get left holding the bag, and the bag is going to be, and I would ask your audience, do you believe in this system? And I just don't get it, because all the warning signs are there. I mean, the mainstream media, they call it every time wrong. I mean, there's the inverse trading platform for what Jim Cramer picks.
Yeah.
Like they actually have a fund. It's the inverse. I thought I was funny for even suggesting that a few years ago. And then somebody did it. And I'm like,
genius.
oh, this is amazing.
It's genius.
It really is because
if everything that this man says is wrong, then the opposite. It's the George Costanza. If everything he said is wrong, then the opposite must be the truth, right? So you just bet against you. What is Jim Cramer telling me to do? Oh, he wants me to buy shares in Peloton. You short it.
That's where we are. I mean, you and I came up very similar backgrounds. You talk about what happened to you in 2008. Same stuff happened to me. I was 28 years old, young entrepreneur, had a real estate company, when I got back from the Army, I went into stuff crazy. I was like, I'm going to learn everything I can. I got every book I could on real estate. And I started a brokerage. I had an agent sell the house before I sold my first one. I put my shingle out there, just tried. And I learned a lot of hard lessons, especially about over leveraging and buying properties I shouldn't have bought. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I think Thomas Jefferson, I got a thing hanging up in my office my dad gave me years ago, and it's the rules from Thomas Jefferson. It says, just because something's cheap doesn't mean you should buy it. Don't buy something just because it's cheap. And I was doing that in 2008, and I kept listening to the financial networks. Driving down the road, listening to finance radio, AM, and they just all these guys saying everything's great. All of this doom and gloom is ridiculous. Don't buy into it. And me, I'm just behind the scenes, like pulling plugs on stuff, cutting marketing, because I'm like, this is not working. That I don't see what you're saying. And of course, then you have the Hank Paulson on his knees to Nancy Pelosi, please give us the TARP funds. We're going to, and George W. Bush saying this sucker's going down. Those days seem quaint compared to what we see now.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize in the year 2000, the debt of the U.S. was $5 trillion. So it took us from, call it 1776 if you want, but it take 1776 to 2000, 2001, $5 trillion, Charlie. And again, we're 33 trillion, 0.5 or whatever it is. And we had trillions a year now. I mean,
yeah,
the wheels are off. We're at 125% of debt to GDP ratio. Not one country's economy's ever survived that. And we've had periods in our history, to be honest, where we've reached levels like that, like World War II. But it was followed by some prosperity, and there was budget cuts and things were. No, we've ripped the knob off. It's gone, and so that's just going out into forever. Now, we throw around these numbers all the time, like trillions. Well, how long ago was a trillion seconds? I asked this on my show. You think $1 trillion is nothing? Well, how long ago was a trillion seconds? It's 32,000 years ago. Because a billion seconds was 32 years ago. It's 1,000 billion.
Yeah.
These numbers are not, you can't compute them, and they're not real. The thing is about when they control the money supply, the genius of this, and it is some super dark genius when they came up with it. It's almost as, the other scam and we'll get into that, I think is never talked about, is credit cards and credit card fees. Whoever came up with that, unbelievable genius.
Yeah.
But they control the money supply. And the money supply isn't about the money necessarily, it's about the assets. So I just read an article the other day. It was like showing how much gold and assets were moving east. That's never good for you as an empire or as an economy when you start seeing things go out the front door. And that's what's happening. Yeah, we got the cash, but things are moving away. See, all of it is the rich don't hoard cash. Yeah, drug cartels and dictators. Okay, yeah. They have pallets of cash. But the super wealthy, they don't do that. They have assets and they use debt. They just use, because everything they do is debt. They just buy assets and then leverage against it because debt is tax-free. You can just go, if you got $1 million property, as you know, and go borrow $500,000 against it, have your tenants pay for it. You don't pay a lick in taxes. That's zero. All that money goes to you. You leverage against an asset. That's what the rich do. Meanwhile, our school system is just telling people, go to college, get heavily in debt, get a mortgage, get a 401k, get an IRA, work until you're 65 or whatever, and then you have about $30,000 left or whatever it is that,
Right.
if you've paid everything and put into your system. So that's not going to bode well, especially when you've got inflation like we've never seen before, and that's only going to get worse. Gosh, Charlie, we haven't even talked about the war yet. We haven't even talked about Israel and Hamas and the geopolitical implications of that. So
I know. Well, you said two things during that make me want to talk about something else too, because you mentioned 401k and an IRA, right? So we've got a bunch of people right now that have a portion of their wealth in IRAs and 401ks that are in stocks and mutual funds and all of these things. And they're looking at it and they're going, well, if the dollar goes away, my stocks and everything's going to be everything that's denominated in dollars is going to have a big problem. If this collapse comes, Tony, then my 401k, my IRA are going to go to nothing. That's bad. I've been saving up for this. I've been counting on it. However you measure the psychological impact of that, I don't know, because that will that'll put people down a path of feeling like that there's no hope. But there actually is hope, because you've got a little, I don't know, trick up your sleeve that can help people get around this. And I don't think everybody does this. And I know for sure that most people don't know that you can do this, but you can wave a magic wand and turn that IRA and 401k into gold and silver, can't you?
yeah, well, I've got one. It's really small, and not just a full disclosure to the audience. I love the gold and silver IRAs, but I put everything into my business. But a lot of folks, they just have the IRAs, they have the 401ks, they work for years. They had to have an employer matching them. They've been putting in, it's great to have an IRA. And this is what I do usually. It's just great tax write-off. If you got a certain amount you can deduct every year, it's just good to have an IRA. I have one, like I said, but I don't put everything I've got into it. But what you can do is you can roll that, whatever, be it 401k, IRAs, from stocks in the system, and you can roll that legally without penalty into physical gold and silver. You can, and it's not like it's a collective, or there's a pile of gold and silver somewhere and you have a part of it. I've seen these things, but no, this is, you pick out the items and we buy them for you. You put them into a third-party vault, and it just stays there. It's not a bank. It's not connected to the system per se. It's not in the banking system. This is a storage facility. So then there's 10 around the country that we tell people. I use Dallas. There's a vault called IDS. And to me, if you're exposed in the market where you're exposed to all this volatility, you're exposed to bailouts, everything that we've talked about, it'd be wise for you to look into how that would work. And I'm happy to you can reach out through me through the website. You can go to macroaggressions.gold. You can find me. And I'm happy to spend as much time as you need telling you the implications of this and what the ins and outs are. Because we've got the ability, like if it was me and I'm not giving investment advice, because I don't see gold and silver as an investment, because gold and silver to me are just money. That's just history. That's what it tells me. Gold and silver are money. I mean, even the bankster JP Morgan said that gold and silver are money. Everything else is credit, except he'd be wrong today, because it's not credit. Everything else is debt. And since 1971, that's what everything is. It's free floating debt. And that's not just the United States, it's everywhere around the world. So you want to get out of those currencies. So if you've got the ability, just put that in silver bars. I mean, silver is super cheap. I mean, comparatively, gold's cheap too. And I love gold, especially if you've got a big number and you want to store that. You can't do it in silver. You got a couple of 100,000 in a house. I mean, you're going to have to put that in because that's a lot of silver. So gold may be better there, but if you've got the ability just to stack silver right now, how cheap is it? Charlie, in 1980, silver was $50 an ounce. So $50 in 1980 could get you like $200 worth of stuff today.
Yeah.
That's the difference. I mean, the purchasing power of the dollar has been destroyed compared to like it was when I was born. So $50 in 1980, it reached $50 again, I believe, in 2011. And then Ben Bernanke came in and said, hey, because gold was hitting 2000, and they stopped that bull run. And they said, no, you don't need to do this. We were wrong on TARP. We had to do what we had to do. There won't be any more bailouts. We're going to be hawkish on rates and all this stuff. And then we got the money supply. Trust us. Well, let's see. What was the debt then? 10 trillion. Good luck with that. They've totally debased the currency since then. I mean, just not. We don't even have fiscal hawks anymore. I know who's running right now on really, stopping the bleeding and the budget, and it's nobody. When I was a kid, it was everything.
Why would you even bother? Why would you? Oh, I'm going to stop the $33 trillion in debt, and now you're going to stop the bleeding. Where were you when we were $8 trillion in debt? Where were you when Trump, added $16 trillion over a couple of years to expand out the money supply during the COVID situations and added all this new money? What do people think? They think it just magically makes the money more valuable? It's like, do a science experiment. Take a 2-liter bottle of Coke and pour it into a bucket, and then add 18 gallons of water and see if it looks like Coke anymore. It doesn't. It gets diluted. This is what's in your wallet now, is diluted down Coke. Maybe this is what people need to, like, if you're waiting for a gigantic advertisement or signal or bat sign or a plane that's flying by dragging a banner behind it saying now is the time to buy silver and gold, like, it's never going to happen that way. You're going to have to zig before everybody else zags, and you're going to have to get up and I think a lot of people have been kind of trained or instructed or felt over the years to not trust what they see. To go, oh, well, there must be smarter people behind this that see something I don't see. Because what do you see when you look at the dollar? Do you see strength and value? I see hyperinflation at some point. I see probably the best of the worst currencies, right? Like, it'll be around for a while because it's needed. And then at some point it won't be as needed and it will eventually collapse at some point, right? And so why would you want to store your wealth, even if you don't have a ton of money? I'm not even saying like you have to be some super rich guy that owns a bank in order to get into gold and silver. Silver's what, $25 an ounce now? Like, that's reasonable.
Yeah, it's less than that on the spot price. I mean, you could get the best way if you were going to stack silver, 1 ounce generic silver round. Stay away from too much premium. There's been a lot of premium on silver in the last few years, and it's come down a bit. We just had an order. Somebody was placing, they had $100,000 IRA. It was a really smart lady, and she shopped around, and I think she came through your site, by the way.
Oh, yeah, cool.
She said, I just want to get 100-ounce silver bars. So she already knew what she wanted. She didn't want any collectibles. She didn't want any sovereign coins, nothing. Not 1 ounces, 100-ounce silver bars going into a vault. So she's going to, get an IRA rollover. It's just a representation of work. And, there's too much emphasis in our society placed on are things going to go up? Like if you look at what happened to our society post 1971, Richard Nixon takes us off the gold standard. We opened, that's in 1971. We opened China in 1972. 1973, we get the Trilateral Commission. They start their plan to redirect our manufacturing and technology eastward. I mean, I think that's an open, that's an open secret. They do it right there in front of you, tell you they're going to do it. The technocrats, Zbigniew Brzezinski and the rest. By 1974, we'd run our last trade surplus ever in this country. We were built on manufacturing. All 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore supported tariffs. Every single figure on our paper currency supported tariffs. There's no free traders in there, but we started free trade uber alles, and that was the genesis of what you would see with NAFTA and GATT coming down the pipe. I'm all about free markets, by the way, but there's something weird about our free trade agreements and the Darwinian contest that we throw our workers into. And one of the reasons the American dream is dying from what happened. But would you notice something that happened at that same timeline? That's when that was the birth of the IRAs and 401ks. And that's when you started seeing, slowly but surely, you started seeing these advertisements for getting in the stock market, getting into investments, because they knew that the only way people would ignore the inflation and the loss of purchasing power in their dollar was to get into this cycle of watching, I got to make my dollars earn more. So because there was no inflation in the 19th century. A lot of people don't know that. If you bought a pair of shoes to go to George Washington's inaugural, those same pair of shoes in 1902 would be the same cost. There was no inflation. Matter of fact, we had the deflation, because we had such a strong gold standard that's why you had the political movements of people like William Jennings Bryan, and the Cross of Gold speech and free silver, and L. Frank Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz, talking about there's an allegory of the gold standard all built into that, and what's silver. And by the way, at the end of that, the Frank Baum book, it's not ruby slippers, it's silver that Dorothy clicks to get home. So that there's all that, and we don't notice it. It's all put into the system that we have to outpace inflation. Nobody asks the question why. Why do we have to do that? What happened? It's Henry Ford said, if people understood the banking system, there'd be a revolution by morning.
Yeah.
This has been a psychological operation on the people, not just of this country, but on planet Earth, because this isn't taught in schools. If you really had sound money, you can't have a deep state. You can't have, well, at least, I was talking to my son the other day. I was like, the proto setup to the Central Intelligence Agency, Wild Bill Donovan and all those guys, they started to run heroin. Then they gave it to the jazz people in the United States and some of the black community because they wanted to run ops. They didn't have this unlimited funding. So they had to deal drugs. They were going around this. They had to fund their black ops and their own deals. And now they don't have to do that anymore. Not really. I mean, you had Iran-Contra. They were just trying to skirt, the United States Constitution and oversight, not so much about the money. Now that doesn't matter because you have fake money. So it's built into the system that we have fake and we have to outpace it, but we don't ever talk about it. I would say this too. The reason that you see numbers that go crazy on gold and silver, like in the 1970s, it was $35 an ounce on August 15th, 1971. By the time I was born on December 26, 1979, it was about $700 an ounce.
Whoa.
And I always ask people, is that because gold became more valuable? Do you understand what you're watching? Because they really don't. And it took me years to understand this because I'm like, well, it was a great investment. Well, sort of, especially if you had a lot of debt and you wanted to pay things off, that can be great. Like if you've already got your mortgage and the dollar becomes worth less and you get paid more, pay it off. You did good. Inflation sometimes can be helpful in the short run. And that's what happened in the 70s. That's why you had interest rates going to the teens.
Yeah.
But people don't understand also that Paul Volcker, head of the Fed in the 1970s, Charlie, he raised interest rates to the teens, but nothing like Jerome Powell has had to do. Jerome Powell has raised rates faster than anyone in history that's been head of the Federal Reserve.
Wow.
And gold is still faster than any pace. And so, like, if he's on pace to be Paul Volcker. Paul Volcker did it over 6 years and got to the teens. So he's out. If they stay hawkish, which I don't see how they can. We're talking about a different country. When I was born, the debt was less than $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Right at it. It went over $1 trillion under Reagan. So, I mean, the fiscally, everything's come off. So they've tried to keep the world's reserve currency status and the dollar strong. But how are they? They're going to need, they don't have the ability to do both at the same time. They can't do quantitative easing and quantitative tightening, and especially in the face of what we're up against now with all these kinetic wars kicking off. So I don't think that can last. The economy is going to need something. And what's that going to do, folks? That's going to devalue your dollar. That's what that does every time they do it.
What if they think that what the country really needs is a central bank digital currency? Because that seems to be the direction that we're going, where they say, well, listen, we're moving into a new technological era, Tony. We don't need this dumb money. And it's just paper. It doesn't do anything, But what if we had money that was smart? You like smart things, right? We could have smart money. We could have smart contracts. Now, I'm not opposed to the digital side of things. I like Bitcoin. I like Monero. I like some of these cryptocurrencies out there. You are not just a gold and silver guy. You owned some of the first Bitcoin ATMs in America. So you are somebody that understands where this is going too. I think, what would you describe yourself? You like things of value, right? And you can understand when you look at something like Bitcoin, regardless of whether somebody thinks it's worth $1 million or $1 per coin, there's a fixed supply, right? And we do like that because we know what happens to these people when you give them the magic printing press. They print until they can't print anymore. So they're always going to screw up the supply side of the equation. We know that because they're undisciplined and they'll never be held accountable. But if you cap the supply side at a certain amount, then you do create a different playing field, which I'm sure they don't appreciate too much. So as we move into this digital era and people are trying to get their head straight about, or you got me on that, I understand that, but I can't take my silver coins down and get bread, but I'm going to be able to do this in a digital format at some point in the future. How do we bridge that gap? What do we start doing in terms of trying to protect ourselves? Obviously, we know, and this audience knows, central bank digital currency is not good, right? Programmable money that can be programmed by psychopaths for the population, not going to work for us. But we've got to be able to deal and live in this new digital world somehow, right? So do we need to get ourselves on the Bitcoin train now? Are we going to look back at this and say, well, you missed the boat at 27,000. It's worth a whole lot more. Or is this something that people are going to say, oh, you bought it at 27,000. You should have waited and watched it go down to 2,700. So what do you take? What's your take on the future of crypto?
First of all, I love Bitcoin. I started buying Bitcoin in 2016 because I bought my first Bitcoin ATMs. I should have bought them sooner. Had up to 12 at one time, and I've sold off my portion. My brother's company, he really took it. He had I don't even know how many he got eventually, but my little brother did a really good job with them. He's moved on to cannabis, doing something different now. But I deal in Bitcoin. I buy Bitcoin every single day. I have it set on automatic, about $50 in Bitcoin every single day, because I like to pay a lot of my people that I sponsor in Bitcoin. So I keep just a reserve around, and I keep it for myself. I buy more if I could, because I believe in it. The crypto market itself, I think, is amazing. I think there's so much opportunity in it, and people should not confuse that with satanic central bank digital currency, CBDC. And I use your phraseology as we talked over a year ago. It's the hill to die on.
Yeah.
It absolutely cannot be implemented or used, because you're talking about the end of all opposition to the Luciferian system of total control. And that's what they want. And it's the people of Nigeria. I love that they just threw it off. They said they're like, they use Bitcoin so much, and they said, no, you'll love these central bank digital currency units. And it was nothing. Nobody adopted it. Because they know what it tracks back to. We in the West, I think, are a lot more malleable, a lot more comfortable. You can get it tied to your UBI. You can just give up and do universal basic income. So there's two different things going on. I love the crypto revolution. I think there needs to be more innovation. People need to continue to look at it. I don't buy any other tokens right now except for Bitcoin. It doesn't mean I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. And I own other tokens, but I'm not a buyer right now. I haven't seen anything I really want to buy. And the reason is, you talk about Bitcoin is very unique in the sense that there is only 21 million that'll ever be created, and there is no CEO, there's no company, there's no country, there's no board that you have to go through. It's just the people's, and it doesn't mean that other cryptos don't have people of integrity, and there isn't a good token out there. I love some of the privacy tokens. I like Monero, things like that, but they track back to something. I mean, they really do. They track back to somewhere. And that's fine. Bitcoin's very unique. So I would say it's part of Bitcoin should be part, in my opinion, of the next step that people take. Like if you haven't just got a decentralized wallet and bought a little bit, get an Exodus wallet. I don't own Exodus. I don't have any interest. I just use it. Pick it up, get your 12 phrases and put them in a laminated piece of paper in a fireproof safe. Have your wallet backed up. By the way, I tested that 6 months ago. I had a phone that broke, and I had a wallet with about $1,000 worth of crypto on it, and it reinitiated it. I had the 12 words written down. I loaded a new phone, and it reinitiated that wallet. So Exodus works that way. Cash App is good to buy Bitcoin. You can call me if you want to buy, a good chunk of it. I've still got contacts through exchanges and things like that, but I'm a buyer every day. And I think it's a part of how we can get around this system. And a lot of things we've talked about today are pretty scary. By the way, my dog Beans jumped up on my lap. I think she heard I was talking to you. She wanted to see Charlie, so she's been hanging out. I don't know if you noticed, she's been popping up. She's like, "Who are you talking to?"
We love our animals. I'll tell you, we have to plan. We have to plan accordingly. Whether we're playing, I've got my cat up there watching this whole thing unfold as well. So we take good care of our animals. We take good care of our families. We try to see things out into the distance that other people can't see, to be more aware of what's coming our direction. I think we're sort of hardwired into this. And I don't know why that would stop when it comes to trying to understand the world that we live in financially, right? These financial markets, it's very confusing, and people go, "Oh, I don't understand this, and this is hard, and surely the people on Wall Street know more about this than us." That's fine. And you maybe you don't know a ton about this. Here's the good news. You don't need to know everything there is to know about silver, because you know the guy that does know everything about, that's Tony. You know what I mean? You don't need to be an expert in gold and silver, and you don't need to know how all this stuff works. You just need to know who to talk to when you want to get yourself set up. And so that's why I really like having you as a resource for this. I know that you can talk to people about this in a way that isn't intimidating, and it's not condescending, and it's not, how do you not know about it? You're not going to give anybody a hard time. This is, they benefit by us being ignorant to how things work, how money works, the system works. It was one of the things that I needed to understand. And I'm not going to say that I have it all figured out either, but once I went through the real estate collapse in 2008, and I was working in the industry, and I was going to work every day, and I thought I knew what I was seeing, and it caught me off guard, and I didn't understand how it all worked. After that point, I decided if I learn one thing, I need to understand what money is. I need to know what it isn't. I need to understand what money velocity is. I need to understand money supply. I need to know why some people can make a lot of money with it, and other people are suckers at the 3-card Monte game, and they can never get it figured out, and they can never get it right. And so I started down this path and to try and learn about this. You wind up watching Mike Maloney videos about the history of money, and you go, holy crap, the Federal Reserve is a private bank. And you meet G. Edward Griffin. He says, well, I've got a book for you, and you read that and you go, oh my God, it's much bigger than what I thought. it can be very intimidating, and it's a scary time, and change is scary, and money is, people feel like they're unqualified to speak about it. But I would encourage people to not do that. I would encourage people to say, I know what I see. I see bad times coming. I see a financial catastrophe coming. Doesn't mean that you want it. Doesn't mean that you're wishing for it to happen. We don't wish for it to happen. It doesn't matter what we want. It doesn't matter what we wish for. It is coming. So do you want to stand in front of this tsunami on the shores of Banda Aceh and say, no, I'm going to stop it myself? Or do you want to take a look around, recognize there's no water, grab the people next to you, say, we got to get out of here and we got to go now. I'll explain it to you later. Trust me on this one. Let's go. Right. So I'm so glad that you're here as a resource for people. You're a great human being. If that was all, you'd be a great resource for people, but on top of that, you have the ability to protect people. Yeah, my guess is that is part of a core of who you are. You are a protector. You are a protector of your nation. You are a protector of your family. You're a protector of Beans, your dog. And you're also a protector of our money too. You can guide us in a way that is going to be beneficial for both of us. We're going to get our money into something else. You're going to make a little money on the side, which is good for us too. We want you to do well. We're going to feel more comfortable going into the world knowing that if that tsunami comes, we've got some of our assets in something else. We're out of the way of it. Oh man, I don't know. I just appreciate you as a person, as a sponsor of this show. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Thanks for being amazing to talk to about this stuff. And like I said, I don't need to know which silver round is the one to get. I don't worry about that stuff. I'm set up with you automatically. I get that box in the mail and then you tell me what silver I need. I don't care. I don't need to. I'm not a silver expert or gold expert. I don't need to be, don't want to be, don't have to be. That's your job, right? Where can people find you, Tony?
Well, you can go to my website for my podcast. And if you want to know about me personally, it's arterburn.news. And then, of course, macroaggressions.gold for if you want to get connected through Wise Wolf. And we talked a lot about gold and silver. It's really, to me, and I'm so humbled by you. I really appreciate the kind words. I think that, I don't think that I have some special mission per se, but I do think that some of the things I had to go through to get me to this place puts me in a good position to be a protector, because I don't think I know everything. And, I have people, my phone blows up all the time. I sponsor a lot of different shows and I'm on so much media, and it's always an honor to talk to all walks of life. I remember being a young man at 22 before I had to go into Iraq, and I had a little bit of money I saved up from Afghanistan, and I wanted to get my first gold coin, and I called one of those 1-800 numbers, and the guy, I didn't realize what I was doing. I wish he had just sold me gold bullion. I could have kept that, and I would have had, it would have been like $300, $400 an ounce, and years later I'd had a return on it. But he didn't care about the amount of money I had, because it wasn't a lot. It was a couple $1,000. And so he put me in some numismatic collectible thing so he could make a commission, I'm sure, and got rid of me. And I noticed I'd walk into shops and people would want to know how much I knew along the years, as I wanted to buy Morgan silver dollars or get into some other types of coins, or just stack some silver. And so I don't ever treat anyone like they're stupid or they should have known better, or why don't you know this? Because I didn't. And that's just not how I am. So there's been so much along the way, just to remind me that I have a unique position to kind of be the gold guy for alternative media. I didn't ever set out to do that, but it's an absolute honor and a privilege. And so I would tell people, if you're interested in gold or silver, you can go to macroaggressions.gold, get in touch with me. You can talk to me personally. You want to send an email and say, I want to talk to Tony, you can. I have a great team. I have Kinsey, who does most of my trades for me. I've got the mother and two daughters who run Branson, and they pack all the Wolfpack packages. That's why and again, I'll end with this. It's why we started Wolfpack. Wolfpack is a way for you to get precious metals automatically. Just take a little bit out of your monthly expenses and allocate it for precious metals, and we get a variety for you. Generally, I save you money, and I send you a comparison invoice like, hey, if you'd have got these same items on the online, they would have cost you more, and you'd have had more on shipping, all that stuff. But because there's a collective of hundreds and hundreds of people, we can get those prices down usually and give you a variety. So, I mean, you get on $50 a month, you have the Lone Wolf package, $50. If you do $50, you're going to get fractional silver, dimes, quarters, half dollars. You'll get a round every once in a while. You maybe get an American Eagle. You get gold backs. We get the gold currency, the slips of 24 karat gold that are gold currency in different states like Wyoming and Nevada and New Hampshire. We have all that. So there's a whole variety of ways that you can just say, it's just like you're prepping for what Charlie and I believe, but we hope never happens.
Oh yeah.
I hope I'm the guy that's wrong. I really do.
Never wanted to be wrong so much in my life.
I just want I have an 18-year-old son. I know you have children. I don't want them to grow up in a world of upheaval and chaos and war and depression. That doesn't make me, I don't want to be right. All I'm trying to be is the watcher on the wall saying, I think what you're witnessing is going to be catastrophic. Just, that it's a burden. And in many ways, because if you read history, if you're tuned in, if you're plugged in, if you have a soul, you're going to recognize some evil. I want to end with this, Charlie. I have a story I just thought of. I want to end the show, and I know you need to wrap up. Most people don't know that the first gold coins came out of a place called Lydia. The Lydian coins, you had the first gold coins about 2400 BC or so. That's the first time that you see coinage of gold. And this is a place in and around where Turkey is now. Okay. So this is the first empire where they created gold, and the king who brought that into fruition was a guy named Croesus. Now, Croesus, he had the gold supply, all these coins. He was very wealthy. And he wanted to find a seer. He wanted to find a sorcerer, a psychic, and to tell him what was next and how he could have an advantage over his enemies and his rivals. So he put out a contest, and he said, anybody that can guess what I'm doing tonight, I'm going to hire. I'm going to bring in into my court, and I'll shower you with gold for being right, because I want to find out who's able to do this.
Right.
And so the person that won was the Oracle of Delphi. The Oracle of Delphi sent him a drawing of a turtle and a rabbit, and that's what he happened to be doing that night. He cooked turtle stew with a rabbit. And so he showered the Oracle of Delphi with all these gold coins and brought the Oracle into the court. And he said, I'm going to go to war with Persia, because this is relevant to today.
Right.
So I'm going to go to war with Persia. What's your prediction? And the Oracle said, if you do that, a great empire will collapse. So Croesus went to war with Persia, and he lost his country. He lost everything. A great empire collapsed. That's kind of like a Twilight Zone ending. He didn't say which one.
Right.
So the history of even gold coinage goes back to these kind of ironic, weird twists in history. Just in the foundation of it is strange, and we can't really predict what's going to go on. So I'll leave you with that, because we are in those uncertain times, and I think we are seeing our own empire fall. Not wishing it, but just giving you a little bit of background.
It's undeniable that this is the direction that we're headed, and I think that for those of us that are paying attention, it's going to be, there's going to be a good side and a bad side to paying attention. Bad side is you see it coming, you're stressing out about it, but I'd rather know what's coming my way and make moves accordingly and get myself as far out of the direct line of fire as I can. I don't want to sit around and debate with idiots whether, well, is it going to be the worst thing that we've ever seen or the second worst thing we've ever seen? Like, I don't care. I don't want to sit around and get walloped. And I will tell you this, that over time I've come to trust what I see. What I understand about this. I'm not turning on the television and taking advice from the talking heads there. If you think that your money is going to be worthless at some point, make a move. Do something now. If you're waiting for somebody to tell you when it is time to make a move, well, maybe then just consider this to be the time that we're telling. I don't even really want to tell people what to do. I just want to tell people to pay attention. And if you're paying attention, I think internally and instinctually, you'll know what to do. You'll know that this cannot last for long. And then whether you time it right and you sold all your stuff a week before it all went to shit, or a year before, or what, just plan accordingly. For the love of God, just pay attention, because if you don't, there's a lot of people out there that will, there's a lot of people in positions of high power that have a vested interest in you not figuring it out until it's too late to do something about it. That's Tony Arterburn, everybody. You should check him out. You can get yourself some gold and silver. We appreciate him. Listen, if you don't get it from Tony, get it somewhere. Get it somewhere. You know what I mean? I think you probably should use Tony, but just start thinking about this differently. And if you want to connect with me, the website is theoctopusofglobalcontrol.com. You can follow me on Twitter @macroaggressions. Thanks, everybody. I'll talk to you again soon.